The Notes of Helen Schucman, A Course in Miracles. The Notes of Helen Schucman. Then acknowledge the true, that's what I'm reading from ACIM, then acknowledge the true creative worth of both yourself and the other one. This places strength where it belongs. Note that incorrect fantasies are always destructive or depleting, in that they perceive another in an inappropriate creative role. Both people are perceived essentially as objects fulfilling their own pleasure drives. This dehumanized view is the source of the depleting use of that. Freud's description is purely negative, that is, as a release from the unpleasant. He also observed that the tension from id impulses never completely abates. So all of this is in Robert Perry's CE version of ACIM. None of it's in the FIP, I don't believe. So put all impulses at the direction of spirit is the idea here. The will of God in any given moment, and maintaining being supremely happy, perfect peace, perfect joy, perfect strength, moment to moment. So anything, okay, so the sentence in ACIM, the only valid use of sex is procreation. And so that's the ACIM statement. And any thoughts, feelings, words, actions that are not that are not the will of God. They're always depleting. So ACIM, the idea in ACIM is thoroughly get away from being a body. Like there are sentences in the book about the body has useful purposes in the will of God only. The body can be a healthy, serviceable instrument, but it's in the will of God only. So by and large, getting away from seeing yourself and others as a body is a major topic in ACIM. So do not see others as objects fulfilling your own pleasure. Nothing should be used selfishly is a sentence in this book. Um, um, everything used should be utilized in all real pleasure from using anything comes from living in God's will or fulfilling God's will. I'm paraphrasing some there, but that's the idea in terms of physicality. So something here about Freud. All right, reading from the Notes of Helen Schucman, ACIM. What he should have said is that the shift from miracle impulses to incorrect impulses was debilitating in the first place because of the level confusion involved. This set up a state in which real release was impossible. Note also that Freud's notion of sex was as a device for inducing relaxation, which he confused with peace. So that's all in Robert Perry's book, not in the FIP. Everything about everything is supposed to be in perfect joy, perfect peace, supremely happy, no conflicts of thought, zero feelings of remorse, disappointment, sorrow, anxiety, confusion, doubt. There's a sentence in the book, all confusion comes from not extending life, which is not the will of your creator, something like that. So, as far as relating goes, the only goal to sex is to create a body, a fetus, so that a child can be born. That's it. There's nothing else about sex ever in any way, moment to moment. ACIM talks a lot about this subject in a lot of different ways, puts that idea across with many sentences in various ways. there's a sentence coming up, I think, about the goal is tranquility, the peace of God, which passes understanding. Phenomenal sense of peace, resting in God, the ability to be patient, observe, no conflicts of thought, strength, confidence in terms of speech, behavior, um, manners and mannerisms, and stature, I suppose. Just a way of being that's strong and good, calm, kind, and confident. So, uh, so nothing is about relaxation in that sense. Truth is about real peace, tranquility, not a feeling of relaxation. That's what the book is saying here. Reading from the notes of Helen Schucman, ACIM. Inappropriate relations relaxes only in the sense that it may induce physical sleep. The miracle, on the other hand, is an energizer. It always strengthens and never depletes. It does induce peace, and by establishing tranquility, not relaxation, it enables both giver and receiver to enter into a state of grace. Here, his miracle mindedness, not released from tension, is restored. So, um, so a miracle. I just read the fact that a miracle is the absence of the body. A miracle is the absence of the body. So, um, the word miracle is used in this book a tremendous number of times in terms of the ideas about the word miracle. But um, for me, I mean, simple way of thinking about miracles, anything filled with joy, peace, strength, and zero negative emotions in any way, thought, word, or action. A miracle, um, and it's an energizer. So there's a sentence in the Urantia book, URANTIA, about um, it's the self that makes someone weary. Um, much good, much good, and much good work can be done if you remove the element of the self from whatever you're doing. In other words, self importance, not the importance of what you're doing, is what drains the energy. So, living in a miracle minded state of being is an energizer. So, always being filled with life, love, vitality, goodness, strength, every moment, moment to moment. Of course, there comes times of sleep, there comes times of meditation. So there is that. But life is meant to be every moment, moment to moment, filled with joy, peace, and strength, goodness. Um, so everything is about everyone else in terms of relationships, in terms of nothing is for yourself. Everything is about relationships with others at all times. So it's always about the giver and the receiver are equal in terms of sharing goodness in whatever way. Um, Lots and lots of sentences in the book about that subject. Miracle mindedness. Miracles are absence of the body. Miracles are the absence of the body. So, staying in a sense of miracle mindedness. I mean, there's many sentences in this book about don't see people as a body. Um, in the holy instant, the body doesn't exist. So, but it's not that the body disappears. It's just that there's this understanding, this way of thinking and seeing people in terms of their spirit and their mind and not their body. That's the ACIM message throughout, you know, throughout the entire book. That message is in a tremendous amount of the book. Um, Reading from ACIM, the notes of Helen Schucman. Tension is the result of a building up of unexpressed miracle impulses. This can be truly abated only by releasing the miracle drive, which has been blocked. Uh, so there should never be any tension in terms of how someone is in any given moment. It's always about a relaxed, resting in God, joyous, strong way of being, moment to moment, um, regardless of anything, about anything, physical, spiritual beliefs, emotions, about all of it. So the ACIM, converting it to libido merely produces further blocking. Never foster this illusion in yourself or encourage it in others. ACM, reading from the notes of Helen Schucman. All of this is in Robert Perry's book, not in the FIP. An object is incapable of release because it is a concept which is devoid of creative power. The recognition and the real creative power in yourself and others brings release because it brings peace. Um, so again, the couple sentences that simply say it very clearly, one of them is sex relations are intended for children. So anything else about that subject is not the will of God, incorrect, will not be supremely happy, perfect peace, perfect joy, etc. Um, 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 and the ego can build on itself. Like a person, I, you, or anyone can make ego beliefs, those beliefs which are not the will of God. Therefore, they're not perfect peace, perfect joy, supremely happy, and they can build on themselves. There's a sentence in the book. Um, all thinking produces form in the mind. So from a young age, myself, you, anyone, from a young age, all thought has created form in the mind, and it's that form in the mind or that thought in the mind that has to be undone by the Holy Spirit. That's a big, big subject in this book, of course. And but ego mentality can be built upon. For example, bad habits. The 12-step programs would be an example. Um, strengthening a alcohol addiction or an addiction to anything else in terms of all of the 12-step programs. So making a problem very big in terms of an ego problem. Yes, man has the power to do that. And any of that that has been done has to be undone by the Holy Spirit in order to live similarly to Jesus in his public mission. So the book here is given a rather, the book says things that are very straightforward in terms of yes or no, absolute or not absolute. So, never foster this. So the word never foster this illusion in yourself or encourage it in others. So that's what the book is saying. Um, this sentence in the book about the Holy Spirit looks to the truth in my mind, your mind, anyone's mind, and then extends that truth outward to other minds. So there is a truth about everything. Everything we do physically, every spiritual belief, beliefs about Jesus, for example, there are truths to everything. And that's what needs to be known, lived, understood. Um, uh, So it's saying here an object is incapable of release. A physical body is incapable of release. That would be the idea. There's a sentence in the book. It says, it's not that the Holy Spirit is asking you to give up the hope of the body's pleasure. The body has no hope of pleasure. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing some, I think, but that's the idea that um, about not being a body. I mean, there's a lot of sentences in this book about not being a body, but along with that, um, okay, so ACIM, the pleasure from utilizing anything should be in utilizing it for God's will. So, and all real pleasure comes from the will of God. So, any pleasure experience in terms of the body is about, is it in the will of God or not? If it's not in the will of God, it's not going to be supremely happy, perfect peace, perfect joy. It's going to have remorse, disappointment, sorrow, anxiety, doubt, confusion, or some other negative emotion with it. Um, the body is devoid of creative power. Everything is about the mind. The body should be felt 100% neutrally. I should experience my body 100% neutrally. That means no physical illnesses, no physical discomfort in any way in any part of my body. No physical discomfort in any way in any part of my body or your body should ever be there ever, moment to moment. That's living godlike, godly, Jesus-like. In terms of the body. The body is 100% neutral at all times. The body itself does not feel any pain or pleasure. Our sentences in this book, many sentences along those lines. Um, so reading from the notes of Helen Schucman, the recognition of the real creative power in yourself and others brings release because it brings peace. So it's always about the mind, a pure mind, a Jesus-like mind in terms of perfect sinlessness, perfect holiness, perfect um, um, blamelessness, perfect innocence. Um, those are the words ACIM uses to describe uh, being godlike in that sense. The atonement, salvation, enlightenment, all the same idea, being one with God in that sense. You're still an individual being, but you're similar to God in terms of perfect peace, perfect joy, perfect love. And for me, it's all the same thing as perfect morality, perfect virtuousness, perfect righteousness. They're all the same thing. ACIM has chosen not to use the word moral. All right, reading from ACIM, the notes of Helen Schucman, the peace of God, which passeth understanding, can keep your hearts now and forever. The book talks a lot about this subject of what real enlightenment is. Jesus did make that statement during his lifetime. The peace of God which passes understanding. So it's all about an incredible feeling of joy, peace, strength, zero conflicts of thought, living correctly, properly in every way, physical behavior, thoughts, words, actions, interactions with others, all of it, moment to moment. Um, that's Jesus in his public mission, and then there's a peace, a strength, a joy that comes to someone that is unspeakable in that sense. That's God taking the final step. That little phrase is in the book a lot. God takes the final step and comes into somebody's life, and ACIM uses the term the great rays come into someone's life and keep someone safe and secure in terms of joy, peace, strength, in terms of their mind. So that would be, Jesus at his baptism, where real enlightenment came to him, and then he lived that through his public mission. For example, Gautama Siddhartha Buddha also experienced what real enlightenment is. Paramahansa Yogananda. Only two short additions are needed here. I'm reading from the notes of Helen Schucman, ACIM. Your earlier acute problem in writing things down came from a much earlier misuse of very great scribal abilities. These were turned to secret rather than shared advantage, depriving it of its miraculous potential and diverting it into possession. This is much like the confusion of incorrect impulses with possession impulses. Some of the original material is still in the temple. This is why you became so afraid about Atlantis. Bill has his own reasons. So, this is all in Robert Perry's book. It's Robert Perry would rephrase it some, to make it more applicable to everyone in general. None of this would be in the FIP. So, so yeah, the first, I don't know, the first 500 pages or 200 pages, 300 pages, 400 pages, in terms of what Helen actually wrote down, um, a lot of very good information is in there in terms of uh, ideas for everyone, but it's also mixed with a lot of things that are just Helen writing. It's not channeled material. It's just Helen writing something out. Or if it is channeled material, it's very, very much simply for Helen and not in general for anyone in general. So, um, reading from the notes of Helen Schucman. Um, so, so as far as so it's just not about the body. Um, certainly any thoughts of owning a body, obviously, that would be another topic in a sense, from a conventional standpoint or from an ACIM standpoint. But as far as possession is concerned, obviously no one possesses anyone else's body. Um, some of the original material is still in the temple. Um, that could be a sentence in reference to where this channeling is coming from in some sense. Reading from the notes of Helen Schucman, ACIM, retain your miracle-minded attitude toward Rosie very carefully. She once hurt both of you, which is why she is now your servant, but she is blessed in that she sees service as a source of joy. Help her straighten out her past errors by contributing to your welfare now. Um, so as far as being of service as a source of joy, absolutely. The whole goal of life is the will of God and service to others. That is the number one focus. That's the gospel of Jesus of Nazareth in the Urantia book. And that's where joy is. Joy, peace, strength, love, goodness is in 100% focus on the will of God and service to others at all times, moment to moment. And it's always a reciprocal way of living in terms of um, doing what you can for others at all times, and do others doing what they can for you at all times. Reading from the notes of Helen Schucman, ACIM, priest, a brother has knelt at your shrine. Priestess, a brother has knelt at your shrine. Heal him through me. I have an idea that the shrine merely referred to the altar within which the priestess served. I imagine that the communication form was direct and the brother always nameless. I, the priestess, responded automatically by praying directly to God, standing with upraised arms to draw down a blessing on her brother, who knelt outside. Her response was completely automatic and impersonal. She never even thought of checking the outcome because there was no doubt. I imagine there is still no doubt, really, except that the priestess can no longer ask alone. It was originally sister, not priestess. So this might be in Robert Perry's book somewhat. It's more or less for Helen, I suppose. It sounds channeled, but as far as the ideas here, it's always about living, knowing, understanding what is the will of God, the first person of the Trinity, what is the will of God, and then do that, whatever it is, thought, word, and action, healing others in any way. Just that's the idea at all times. Um, Impersonal, the word impersonal is here. There's sentences in the book about the impersonal miracle working, like even though, like Jesus, for example, the actual physical miracles he did, there was a specific recipient of that miracle, but it was still impersonal in the sense that it was for everyone. Um, in a sense, there are a few sentences in this book using the word impersonal. Um, there's a sense about, inappropriate attraction can be changed to impersonal miracle working in the moment, uh, if you allow for that to come into your mind. So uh, miracles are always about, they're done for everyone in every way, although obviously usually there's one person who's the actual recipient of it. um, I priestess, the equality of men and women is just a fact. Like, I mean, as far as that topic, there's a lot in the Urantia book about it. Um, this book is more along the lines of everyone is a son of God. Everyone is a son of God is more or less this book. the word priestess is here, but so in the Urantia book, there's a sentence about thought adjusters, the spirit of God that every normal-minded human being on planet Earth has, or even all right. So anyway, thought adjuster, the spirit of God for everyone on Earth presently. Um, that that spirit that comes from God does not take into account the sex of the person, whether the person is a male or a female. The spirit of God that comes to every human does not take that into account whatsoever in terms of which fragment of God will go to which human. Um, the gender or sex of the person is not taken into consideration in terms of that. There's a sense in the book about that. Your ancient book, the equality of men and women. Just reading from the notes of Helen Schucman, ACIM. As long as you remember always that you never suffered anything because of anything that anyone else did, this is not dangerous. Remember that you who want peace can find it only by complete forgiveness. You never really wanted peace before, so there was no point in knowing how to get it. This is an example of the need to know principle, which was established by the Plan of Atonement long before the CIA. No kind of knowledge is acquired by anyone unless he wants it or believes in some way he needs it. A psychologist does not need a course in on the hierarchy of needs as such, but like everyone else, he does need to understand his own. So a lot of this sounds like it's just for Helen. Uh, uh, Complete forgiveness is important. Forgiveness. I mean, even the idea that everything is the way it's supposed to be, no matter how heinous or horrible. In a sense, it is the way it's supposed to be, in the sense that I'm not going to judge it. I, you, or anyone should not judge what's taking place. If it's a violent crime, stop the violent crime. But as far as morals go and things of that nature, there should be no judgment. It's about always being wholly joyous, conflict free, peaceful. So I have no attitudes of um, disliking what someone else is doing or saying. There's no judgment at all along those lines. It's simply um, I do not agree with it. I'm not going to do it myself. That's not how I think, act, say, whatever. That's not my thoughts, beliefs leading to actions. But I'm not going to have any negative emotions towards what someone else is doing. That's definitely what forgiveness is about. Um, um, and certainly for me, I certainly believe, and the book talks about this forgiveness. You know, think about my own life, anyone, think about their life where in the past their bad behavior brought about remorse, disappointment, sorrow, to whatever degree. Um, Forgive yourself for that fully. And by forgiving myself or anyone forgiving themselves for that type of bad behavior fully, then it can be completely forgotten. Certainly, forgiving everyone else for anything that you consider incorrect is certainly a part of all that. Um, I think that's the easy part. Forgiving others to me is the easy part. Forgiving yourself and truly forgetting anything that I've ever done that was incorrect in terms of bad behavior seems to be not as easy or something to do, but all kinds of ideas about that subject. Um, I don't know, the need to know principle. Um, I mean, for me, ACIM is saying if it's not necessary, it's not the will of God. Like, as far as anything is concerned, if it's not necessary, it's not the will of God. So Um, uh, no kind of knowledge is acquired by anyone unless he wants it. So, ACIM, sentences in the book. This is a course in mind training. Um, all learning, understanding needs study and attention. There's a couple sentences in the book about that. So, um, this is about learning, knowing, understanding the ideas, and of course, living them, experiencing them is what's most important.